could, you know.
Wow. So you tracked it you tracked it all in the barn.
In the barn, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like that did have a bit of a different kind of tonality to a lot of their previous records. It's maybe darker. I don't know.
Well, it sounds like them.
Yeah, it sounds like them. But I feel like you maybe have there's something that you're doing also that's changing the sound a tiny bit, you know?
Oh, cool.
More.
I think their previous records sounded like them through the lens of somebody trying to make a hit record.
Yeah, which is interesting.
And they don't care about that.
They're such a live band, right? Like the records are just like, let's make a record because we have to make records. But, you know, really it's the touring and the shows, and that's what their fans are obsessed with.
Of course. That's exactly right.
Yeah, it's such an interesting band.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk a little bit about mixing. You know, you've talked about your mix template and stuff like that on, you know, other podcasts. I know you're also working like, you know, analog and in Pro Tools. What do things look like right now these days? You know, I guess since the last time you've done like an interview like this,
which was like a week ago.
I didn't hear that.
Well, I don't really have. I mean, my template is my gear. You know, I don't have like this, you know, mix template that you know, my assistant imports and then I put all of it in and then I mix away. It's, you know, if the template is the fact that I have on my console, certain channels are always certain things. Okay. That's kind of my template. And that means that certain channels have pieces of gear, you know, inserted, and other channels don't. And other channels have other gear inserted. And then, I use Pro Tools as my sort of tape machine submixer. So like, yesterday I mixed a track that had, about 40 string tracks. Well, I have a 48 channel desk. I'm not going to put 40 string tracks on my desk. It doesn't make any sense. So, you know, so those get submixed in the computer, and then that comes out on 2 tracks on my desk. You know, so am I mixing hybrid? Yeah. Of course, because nobody records tracks in 24 tracks anymore. They just don't.
Unless you're Jack White, maybe.
So,
I don't know.
Well, and then he's doing it in 8.
8, right.
You know?
Exactly.
Although, the Raconteurs are about 24 to 32 tracks, because basically what happened on that record is they cut the tracks on tape, transferred it, and then Brendan wanted to work on stuff at his place. And so then it just became like, well, I'm in Pro Tools, so sorry. You know, and then it just stayed in Pro Tools from then on. But so that record came to me in Pro Tools, which was fine. But like Jack didn't want to use plugins. He didn't want to use things that he couldn't touch and turn and see and feel, you know, until we got to some sound that he wanted that I couldn't generate back here. And then, we used some plugins and it was great. But, you know, so for me, I have a 48 channel desk, 48 inputs, 96 returns total, 32 buses, and then I have 3 stereo buses on my desk. So those of you in podcast world can't see it, but I have 32 buses that fold back to the first 32 channels on my desk in the upper faders. So all my lower faders go to stereo and to parallel buses. And then those parallel buses all come back in 1 through 32 on my desk. And then 33 through 48 are effects returns. And then the small faders, I actually literally use them as Pro Tools returns for extra tracks. So like if there's a keyboard track or something in Pro Tools that is kind of an ancillary BS track that I don't need to turn up or turn down, I use 33 through 48 small faders for that. So you know, it's pretty common. I mean, I have all 32 of my buses patched, and I have something patched in all 48 of my tracks and all 48 of my returns. So 96 inputs to mix. It's great.
You're pretty much mixing on the desk, right?
Yes, and I do use the automation on the desk, which is over there.
Right.
You know, so
when you were talking with Warren Ewart, you said you never do automation inside of Pro Tools. I was like, I can't even.
Well, I don't have to.
That. Right, you have the board.
Why would I? I've got a console that does automation. You know, I can sit here at the faders. Why would I want to move a fade around on screen? That doesn't make any sense. It's about the stupidest, most dumbest thing ever to move a fader around on screen. Makes no sense whatsoever to me. But hey, your mileage may vary.
If you don't have the SSL board, you don't have a choice.
Objects in your mirror may appear larger than real life. But the thing is, I mean, I know a lot of people who, I mean, just get a control surface. Just get something with a fader on it or two, you know? I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I have a Pro Tools. I have a couple of artist mixes. So, and then I have this little board that goes, this piece of wood that goes over my center section that I can put an artist mix on. Now, what do I use it for? Well, if I've got 40 tracks of strings, I might want to bring the cellos up when the cellos do their little solo. So yeah, of course, from time to time, I do automate in the console, in Pro Tools, but it's not the end all be all for me. It's not. The console is where I put everything, you know. And the console automation works. It's dumb simple, and it works every day. Knock on wood.
Amazing.
Knock on wood.
So having listened to a bunch of the records you've been a part of, I would say that probably your snare drums always sound awesome. Do you have any, like, I don't know, philosophies about drums, like of how you want it to sound, or is it just every song's a little bit different? And any interesting tried and true techniques that you use for snares specifically? I
can always hear when a song I mixed comes on the radio or something, like I'm at Home Depot and I go, oh, yeah, I did that. And it's usually based around the snare. Part of it is I like drums to rattle and make noise. I love that sound.
Yeah.
I mean, I also like when things sound broken. So I like broken cymbals a lot. You know, like ones that when you hit it, it goes, something goes, you know, along with the cymbal. I like it when the snares on the bottom of the, you know, the snares rattle, you know, with the kick drum, you know, I like all of that. I like when it goes bonk, bonk, you know. I don't love like really tight drum sound, pop, poop, poop, pop. Although I do record those every now and then. I do like them when I like them. But normally for me, snare drum should go bwang, you know. Now, how do I go about doing that? Well, it's distressor usually. And then sometimes I will in parallel use a transient designer. And I'll just bring the transient designer with the release really long and the attack really like really soft. So basically it's just the meat. So the track coming through the distressor is the track that goes pop. And then then the transient designer goes bwong, you know, and adds all that length. I also am a huge bottom snare fan. I love the bottom of the snare because that's what makes it a snare. Too many people, I get tracks all the time with like just the top snare. I'll get just the top mic, and then they'll have all this hi-hat in it because they're trying to get the crack in the snares without a bottom mic. And that's usually about the time I have to go and replace it or something. What I'll do then is I will take and filter. I'll low pass filter the snare drum, right? So that the hi-hat isn't in there. And then I send it out to my tracking room where I have a Black Beauty snare on a snare stand with a Genelec 1029 sitting on top of it. And then I send that signal to the Genelec, which blasts into the snare. I mic the bottom of it, and I put that back in.
Genius.
I call it the snare robot. It's not something I invented. A lot of people have done it, but I use
like a
that
snare
a lot.
revival.
Yeah, snare robot. You know, I said I didn't invent it, but I just have that set up all the time.
Yeah, you're only the second guest on my show that's mentioned something like that, so that's really neat.
I tried it with kick drum, but you really got to have a big speaker to make that work. It just doesn't really work. So, you know. Yeah,
really cool. What ratio are you usually using on the distressor, if you don't mind me asking?
4-to-1.
Just like FET style.
4-to-1. Yep.
Yeah.
4-to-1 on everything.
Amazing. Yeah. You know, people keep talking about how, you know, mixing in the box is getting better and better, and clearly you're obviously, partially in the box. What do you think is still missing in your mind? Is it the tactical thing, or is it a sonic thing, or is it both?
The thing that I miss is chaos. Now, what do I mean by that? Digital recording in any way, shape, or form is based around numbers. It's based around math. And, I've said this a lot, so this is not like something that hasn't been said on other podcasts. But, 2 and 2 is always 4 in the digital world, right? But in the analog world, it's not always true that 2 and 2 is 4. Sometimes the 2 is like 0.92, and then the other 2 is like 2.1. And so you end up getting a little bit more or a little less than 4, right? Now, what I'm basically getting at is there's a lot to be said, in my opinion, about why people talk about the sound of tape. People talk about warmth and all that. That's a bunch of bullshit. It's fucking stupid. Warmth is lack of top end is what they're saying. And the lack of top end that they're talking about is when people I've got this tape machine and I'm going to run all my tracks through it one at a time, right? And I'm going to print everything into the red so it sounds like tape. And that's just bullshit. That's not what it was meant to do. I will say that the sound of tape and records that people love that were done on tape doesn't have anything to do with that. What it has to do with is, one, a massive amount of talent to be able to play it and pull that off, right?
Hell yeah. Mm-hmm.
Secondly, budgets that allowed people to get sounds, to get working, good-sounding environments to make records. Third, time to make the record. But lastly, to me, the most important part of this is that tape machines, this is going to be shocking, sort of, tape machines never ran at the right speed, ever. Now, unless time code was on the machine and a computer was clocking and resolving that machine. And what I mean by that is that if you were to load up, I have an 827 back here, which is a very solid machine, right? And I was to put 7 minutes of tape on that machine, exactly 7 minutes of tape, right? And I was to hit play and we were to time it, there's no way it would ever be exactly 7 minutes. And if you did it over 10 times, you would start to average 7, but you'd never be 7 unless you have time code, you have a synchronizer, and the machine is resolved to a clock and locked. And you would have to do that to have like 2 machines running or locking to video or anything like that. But basically almost every record that we ever listened to, a lot of them weren't done like that. They were just, they just ran. So that means that machine, which is a mechanical device, a very intricate mechanical device, is pulling tape, and it would speed up and slow down and slow down and speed up in small amounts, not big amounts, but small amounts throughout the entire track. That's the thing our head likes, because all of us live, maybe not on this Zoom call, but in real world, we live in analog. We live in analog life. This is all this around me is all analog. Our life is analog, Yeah. I'm never, ever going to actually be able to calculate 2 and 2 being exactly 4, ever. It's always going to be a little off or something. If you have 2 iPhones, yes, you're going to have 4 of them if you put 2 more together. But the reality is that what I'm talking about is a little more metaphysical. It's a little more sort of big G God than small G God stuff. Math is
a really cool point.
Math is math, it's in this Pro Tools rig that I'm, have here. Every time I hit record and hit stop, that file is exactly the length of time it is. And every time I hit play, it's going to run pretty much exactly the same. Yeah. Now, Pro Tools machines will drift in time, but they drift very, very tiny amounts because of the clock. Very, very tiny amounts. But like I have an ATR 102. I can tell you right now that every master I've ever done,